Very good evening to everybody. My name is Mangesh. I'm the co-founder CEO of Shoptimize, which recently has been acquired and now branded as Graas. And what we're doing for brands in India for the last decade and will continue to do so for decades to come, hopefully, is helping them grow. And today I'm here to talk about a little bit about the journey that we have seen from the beginning. We started in around 2012, where e-commerce was very early, and the stages that it has gone through, and where it's come today, and where we believe it is going. And yeah, okay. And why we are calling it algorithmic e-commerce. Yeah. So just a quick look at where we've come. Generation one, of course, was brick and mortar. We all saw the growth of modern trade in India, with malls coming in, with branded stores, with better shopping experiences, and starting in the 2000s, we saw the beginning of e-commerce, right? Primarily started with marketplaces like Flipkart, Amazon, and many more that have come in. From 2019, kind of just before the pandemic and there onwards, a lot of brands have started looking at growth through their own website, in addition to growing on marketplaces. All of this while you're also continuing to grow on the other channels, but maybe not as aggressively as some of the newer ones. And what we have seen, I mean, we were one of the companies that saw a lot of growth during the pandemic because of offline being shut, because of marketplaces going through some disruption. So a lot of brands that wanted to sell directly, and once that has now grown over the last few years, we have now reached a point where almost every brand has multiple channels. Almost every brand has multiple sales touch points as well as advertising channels. And managing that growth is now reached a point where it is well beyond human comprehension, right? Because the number of variables, the number of times they change has gone through the roof. So it's now about managing millions of variables. Today, how many ad networks do most of you guys advertise on? How many advertise on one ad network? Or more than one? More than five? Yeah, so there are a few who are already looking at more than five ad networks. Each of them have multiple ad types. Each of them have multiple audiences, multiple landing experiences. So it's well beyond managing a few variables, right? So just a quick quiz, what this looks like. I would just like some of you guys to participate. Maybe we can have the mics around. We'll just talk a little bit about, yeah, I think the screen is a little messed up, but while we figure, yeah, I think just, yeah. So we have some mics around. So any people representing brands here can raise their hand. Simple questions about how many SKUs, etc. Anybody would like to participate? Any takers? Otherwise, I'll have to pick, or I'll have to answer, and then I'm not blamed for the result. Anybody wants to take a shot at it? So let me take the first column, and you'll see how easy it is, and then maybe somebody will join. So let's think that you're a brand that sells maybe 200 SKUs, right, across maybe 3 countries, and through maybe 5 channels, right? You can just scroll down using maybe 3 advertising mediums, right? And juggling at least 20 of these variables, right, across color, size. Anybody wants to take the second piece? How many people in your team who are doing e-commerce for you? Any takers, or I'm just going to go pick? Okay, so let's say you have 10 people, or maybe, yeah, 5 people in your team. Most teams are smaller, working. This one everybody likes to answer. How many hours a day do you think they work? 24. You have a great team. Don't let them go. I would say 6 hours of productivity is maximum we can expect, and working for 5 days a week, right? So just simple things. This is the number of decisions each of your team member has to make every minute, right? Just across these many variables. So it's gotten to a point where it is not possible to do this for humans anymore. So what happens is you prioritize, you take the top one or two decisions, right? And the senior people take the tougher decisions or the more impactful decisions, and you probably let a long tail of decisions go because you can never get to it now because of the number of variables. Yeah, we just continue back to the deck. So, just two quick stories. I don't know how many of you all resonate with this ballooning of variables and number of decisions you have to make. A show of hands. Do you think it is this complicated or it's very easy? How many people think it's easy? One person thinks it's easy. I'm going to assume everybody else thinks it's hard because that's kind of where we have reached, right? So, let's take two examples. One is, and these are customers we've worked with, of course. Um, and these, healthcare and nutrition brand had a 3-member team, got a return on ad spend of 4, but they didn't invest in technology at that point, but they continued to grow, right? So as they continued to grow, they saw ROS also improve, but they had one team member leave for multiple reasons. And the focus on cost optimization was one of the factors, of course. But then what happened after that is that there is a big drop in ROS. It comes down to about 1.5x as they continue to scale, right? And we all know in e-commerce, you need to keep scaling. Another example of another brand we worked with, they started implementing some of these algorithmic e-commerce technologies. They had a 3-member team. The analysts were more focused on making sure that they executed on time instead of going through multiple of variables and spending hours in the day analyzing, and that led them to kind of stabilize on the ROS front as they continued to grow. So these are, I mean, of course, this is generalized for all of us to understand, but these are real stories that are happening out there in the market. And you may be at one or two ends of the spectrum, but this is something that we have actively seen as brands have scaled over the last 2-3 years, that the people who invested in systems that helped them scale decision making were the ones who were continuing to grow without having to spend a lot on ad channels, right? So that is what we are calling algorithmic e-commerce. To give you a quick overview, there are multiple data channels that you pull data from. These could be your storefronts, your stores like Shopify, Magento, Salesforce, marketplaces like Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra. There are ad channels, and the number of ad channels continues to grow. Just a few minutes ago, we spoke about WhatsApp and how WhatsApp can be used to target customers. So, what message do you send whom? How did it work? Hence, what did you do to your WhatsApp rating? Are you likely to get blacklisted? All of these data points go into, in our case, a single data lake. And from this data lake, we run algorithms that help you identify data insights and convert these insights to recommendations. This is a journey we started about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in fact, before the pandemic, because we saw this coming in terms of the number of variables, and we found it difficult to manually go through so much data and make decisions on a regular basis and to be at the top of your game day after day. It was extremely exhausting, and we wanted to use systems and processes to do that. Something we started doing for ourselves, which we are now extending to all brands out there so that they can use the same technology, right? So that's what we call as algorithmic e-commerce, the reason why it is relevant, and the reason why in the coming years we will all be using it. So quick analogy is, stock trading. So if you saw how stock trading happened in the 80s, it was largely manual people, buying and selling shares, brokers, etc. Today, none of that happens, right? Even large companies are buying and selling huge amounts or taking positions worth millions and maybe billions of dollars based on algorithms, right? And they are deciding whether to buy this stock or sell this stock. Nobody would have imagined this 20 years ago. It's happened. Nobody can imagine this happening in commerce today, but it is going to happen. So, do start investing in understanding data, processing data at scale, because that is what is going to lead to your growth over the coming decade. Yeah. So that's a little bit about what we had. Happy to take any questions you may have.